Bank robbers no longer carry sawn-off shotguns or break open safes. Today's bank robbers don't even leave home to do their dirty work, and it's you who is the target, not the bank.
This has become the most profitable crime on earth.
This is Daylight Robbery. I'm your host, Alex Brooks. In the 1970s and 80s, Australia had a violent armed bank robbery crisis. Today, there's a digital bank robbery crisis. The weapons of choice are stolen emails, fake documents, and exploited trust. The getaway car is almost always a Mule bank account, a shady kind of account, sometimes set up with stolen ID. Make no mistake, Australia's digital bank robberies are violent. They steal first home deposits, savings, and entire superannuation and retirement dreams. Our laws haven't kept up with exponentially fast-changing cybercrime, and it's financially ruining Australians. There's no alarms, no sirens, and very little chance of getting your money back. Jacomi's life has been shattered not once, but twice. First, by the tragic death of her husband, then by ruthless organised criminals operating within the digital economy.
I'm Jacomi and I've been the victim of a major scam. I lost $760,000 of my late husband's life insurance money through these scams.
As a grieving single mother, Jacomi fought and won an unimaginable battle. She recovered every cent stolen during a digital bank robbery that happened in 2022.
It was a miracle. Look, I was on my knees for nights praying for a miracle, and I do believe God helped me because I don't know of any other people that actually got their money back. I do believe through the investigation I've done to track where the money's gone and that I was on it pretty fast, obviously helped in the physical sense that I'm very grateful that God helped me get that money back.
David Sweeney fought for 5 long years to recover the $1 million his father lost to an Israeli crime gang.
Everyone said, you'll never get your money back, but they also wouldn't say it was a crime. It was just weird.
It might be difficult to recover funds, but it's not impossible, as this episode will show. Jacomi and David's families experienced very different types of digital bank robberies, but all of them experienced severe stress and trauma from this crime. The regulator ASIC says just 2 to 4% of scam victims receive any money back. Their journeys highlight the random lottery of digital bank robberies. Some people get everything back, others get between 2 or 10% refunded, and others still get absolutely nothing except an interest bill on their loss from the bank. David's father believed he was making an investment. Jacomi was trying to keep her husband's life insurance money safe in a term deposit until she could buy a house for her kids. Now, even though Jacomi had her $760,000 reimbursed, the trauma from her crime 3 years ago still burns.
So I didn't sleep for, weeks. I had to get medication from the doctor to be able to just sort of function halfway. I was still working full time. I had to get myself to work and had to continue on because what about my kids? I can't fall in a heap and sit and feel sorry for myself because you have to provide for your kids.
Survivors of financial crime suffer severe post-traumatic stress. The violent disruption these digital crimes inflict on people's financial and emotional lives leaves vicious scars. Even survivors who get their money back, like Jacomi, walk away wounded.
And then a year later, I bought the property I wanted to buy. And I had to go to the bank to pay the deposit, which was $200,000. The moment I walked in that bank and had to transfer that money, I couldn't. I got a severe panic attack to the point where they escorted me outside to be able to breathe. I walked away. I couldn't do it.
Jacomi still struggles to do large transactions and leave her credit card details anywhere. Some people think scam victims bring the problem on themselves by clicking the wrong link or getting their emails hacked. But Jacomi is an auditor who works in risk and finance. She says the initial experience of the scam was as horrific as getting the news that her husband had been killed.
I got the same nausea, the same shock, horror. I can't explain it even in words. I literally sank to my knees when they told me my husband passed away, and I sank to my knees when I knew this was happening.
Jacomi had been conned by a fake Macquarie Bank website and a man with a British accent who pretended to work at the bank. In those terrible days after her husband's death, Jacomi's financial planner recommended she put the life insurance money with Macquarie Bank. That's a private bank, not a retail bank with branches that handle cash or other transactions. It's online only. Macquarie's been called the millionaire's factory, but that's because it makes its 20,000 or so staff rich, not its retail banking customers. Macquarie offers competitive mortgage and cash management account interest rates so it can get more capital to make more millionaires. The Macquarie CEO earned $29.4 million last year. That's 294 times the average Aussie salary. Now, for comparison, the Big Four bank CEOs earned less than $7.3 million, 4 times less than the Macquarie CEO. So Macquarie, like ING and other branchless banks, are magnets for digital bank robbers and bank impersonation scams. Jacomi distinctly remembers Googling Macquarie Bank and clicking on the top search result to fill in her details for this term deposit. When the fake Macquarie Bank called Jacomi back, the hold music, the background sounds, the disclaimers, everything sounded just like the real bank.
The person had a British accent, and I questioned him because I'm a finance person and I was interested to understand exactly how it works. What's the interest? Is it forward paying, backwards paying? Can I withdraw the money? What happens when I want to withdraw the money? How long does it take? So I really questioned in detail. He could answer every single thing. I had no idea, no suspicion, no warning signals that this wasn't real.
But because Jacomi is cautious, she went into her nearest CommBank branch to ask them to check the validity of the account Macquarie wanted her to transfer into.
So because it was a large amount, $760,000, you can't transfer it via the internet banking. So I went into the Commonwealth Bank to ask that a transfer can be made through them. And I showed them the details. I showed them the bank account, the emails I've received from Macquarie Bank. The Commonwealth Bank's response was, we can't verify these details for you. That's your responsibility.
Jacomi had to complete an international transfer form and do the transactions through her CommBank and NAB banking apps.
The banks put the full onus on the customers to check bank accounts. And how do you check a bank account? What access does a normal person have to any bank account details to check and verify that it's valid and that it's not a scam?
When she didn't receive her Macquarie Bank term deposit logins, Jacomi called the real bank's fraud hotline to learn the devastating news.
It's not a Macquarie Bank account at all. These scammers are so cunning. So they use these money transfer platforms.
So let's unpack that a bit. In the past, checks and cash were how we transferred money through the banking system. Now, fast, speedy electronic payment platforms whiz money around the globe. And Mule accounts give criminals access to these payment platforms through our banking system.
I then had access to a friend that works in Treasury that helped me look at this bank account, and he couldn't verify whose bank account it is. That information is not accessible, but he could say it went to this money platform.
Jacomi's helpful friend worked for the federal government department that looks after Australia's economy and finance. Now, they couldn't see which people were behind the bank account, but they could trace which payment platforms hosted Jacomi's stolen money at any given time. It's always good to have friends in high places like Treasury. Now, criminals move money quickly, breaking it into smaller amounts in the hope that banks can't find it. It's a game of financial hide and seek, and the criminals outmaneuver the banks and usually get the money into crypto or offshore before banks have even flagged the fraud. So Jacomi learned her money was sitting on a platform called Manova.
So I called Manova in a panic, struggled for an hour on the phone to speak to anyone that's willing to help me. I pleaded, I threatened, I cried, I begged to try and find someone that I don't want any personal details or information. I know they can't share that, but I just want to know where this money went next. I called Manova, finally got a woman, I think her name was Teresa, that helped me. She was very understanding and said, look, it went to Cuscal, and here's the next step it took.
Cuscal is another real-time payment platform the banks use.
I called Cuscal, went through the exact same process. And so I went until I hit a dead end, because the next platform it went to was a cryptocurrency company called Elbait. And I couldn't find any contact details for them on the internet. I Googled and searched, but they only had this random inbox email, and I kept emailing it, no response. There's no contact numbers you can call for Elbait.
And this is where Jacomi's sister and brother-in-law, a former Special Forces soldier, encouraged her to fight. Jacomi wanted to curl up in a ball and give up. But the minute her relatives heard of the scam, they called in Nine Network's A Current Affair.
So A Current Affair helped me, sorry. It was highly, highly embarrassing to go on national television and tell your story. I was still in shock, still horrified and traumatized, but I wanted to share it to help others.
So the miracle happened.
So A Current Affair had more resources than I had to get access to Elbait. And they actually called them and found the founder of the company called Morty. And he was helpful and said, okay, he can see the money in the account, he's freezing it. So that was amazing.
Jacomi got every cent of her money back the next day, thanks to her friend in Treasury, pleading phone calls, A Current Affair, and Morty from Elbait. Like Harriet, Jacomi overcame the shame most financial crime victims feel to publicly talk about her case. But Jacomi didn't know if Elbait was part of the scam or part of the miracle that returned her money.
I still didn't believe that he had my money, and I still believed he was maybe part of the scam. And so I wanted to see this person and meet them face to face and have a coffee and look them in the eye and say, don't you dare take my money.
Jacomi believes Elbait is legit, though Morty didn't want to speak to me for this podcast. Option FM, on the other hand, the company David Sweeney's father invested $1 million with, was most definitely not legit. Binary options trading isn't always criminal, but mostly it is. It began in Israel when some local entrepreneurs invested in cold calling Americans, Australians, and Europeans. Binary options trading developed out of online casino software. These frauds rely on the illusion of trading when really it's gambling. Gambling coached by account managers who call victims to encourage their wins and do one more blow on the dice. Often, these account managers also coach victims on how to borrow from short-term money lenders.
And they claimed to be employing 85,000 people. The FBI claimed that it was bringing in about $5 billion a year into Israel.
America's FBI arrested Israeli binary options entrepreneurs once they'd travelled to America. They were jailed for more than 20 years. Australia didn't do any of that. David says the police didn't even understand what binary options were.
Because there was trading that had happened, they felt that Dad had made a bad investment. They would never give me that in writing. But they did say that it was completely out of their remit and budget to go after anyone overseas.
Now, David is the dogged type, a methodical researcher who spent the equivalent of 2 years full-time delving into this complex fraud. Essentially, victims log in and watch their trades grow, not realising they are hooked on the gambling or gamification. They see their trade balance growing because it's not at all real. Then suddenly every red cent is gone and your account manager is terribly sorry, but he now coaches you on how to get every cent out of you. Can you borrow against your house? Get another credit card? Call in help from family or friends? Option FM was no more an investment than roulette or blackjack at the casino. And ASIC, our regulator, knew it. 3 months before David's father made his first fateful trade. ASIC told the banks Option FM was a scam, but those banks still processed all of David's father's payments to Option FM and then blamed him for making a bad investment. It was only when David spent months doing his own Freedom of Information requests that he uncovered this ASIC email and presented it to the 3 banks who were still trying to blame David's father.
So it turned out that there was also such an email regarding to my father's company, Option FM, or the company that defrauded my father, that was sent some 3 months before my father was defrauded. And it was sent to the banks from which the money went out.
This email outlined how Option FM were cold calling Australians to sell non-existent financial products. ASIC asked banks to stop processing payments to those Option FM accounts. This proof that the banks were on notice of crime and fraud and that they had willfully ignored the ASIC email meant the banks immediately began paying David's father back once David showed them the document.
So one bank went to 100% without too much pushing. Another bank went to 100% plus interest without too much pushing, and another bank really pushed back, and we sort of got them to 80%.
So when there is evidence of the banks committing fraud and ignoring the regulator's warnings, the banks will reimburse. But the onus is on you to investigate and present the evidence. The police had no idea how to tackle or solve this complex fraud. David's family had to sign a confidentiality agreement to get their refund. So we're not naming the banks. David is speaking out because he believes most Australians assume banks don't let criminal fraud happen on their watch.
If there's crime going on, and if a bank knew about it or knew about that type of crime, that the bank would be doing something about it. I think they would be surprised to know that crime was going on and the bank wouldn't protect them.
The real stinger for Jacomi came when CommBank called her up to tell her they had recovered her money.
3 days, 4 days later, the bank called me and said, "Oh, Mrs. de Preez, we've got good news. We got your money back." I lost it with this poor guy on the phone. I said, "Let's just be very honest here. I know you're the messenger, but I'm going to put on record, you write on that record, you did not get my money back. I got my money back."
A long time ago, cash, cheques and paper ledgers settled and cleared transactions. In a time before crypto or digital payment platforms or even Mule accounts, bank managers verified everything, matching signatures and so on. Yes, cheques took a long time to clear, and cash did create a serious armed robbery problem in the 1970s and 80s. My uncle told me the tellers at the bank he worked at in the 1970s had pistols under the counter.
You can't even open a bank account without 700 checks. But these scanners can open bank accounts like that.
And in the digital age, absolutely no one seems able to shoot them down or shut them down. Next time on Daylight Robbery, we follow the story of an unwitting money mule who thought she'd scored a dream job, only to be scammed out of a massive $255,000 by Chinese organised crime. Like and subscribe to follow.